I was working as a classroom teacher, and I decided that I had better reduce my time to half time because my son would be in an intensive behavioral intervention therapy in our home. So he would have a therapist come in half a day. This person was under the Autism Early Intervention Program mandated by the Ontario government at the time. So we were really fortunate. We didn't have a waiting list for him. He was in, by the age of 5, he was in. He showed incredible progress with this therapist one-on-one daily. And we were really excited because all of a sudden he went from a little boy who wouldn't show us any eye contact, wouldn't speak, wouldn't give us anything, any kind of the regular little boy things. He didn't even know how to play with cars. He was terrified of houseflies. He was terrified of the fax machine. And now he started to grow and to become this almost a normal, if you want to call it normal, little boy that would play with cars, drive a little train on a train track, and he would acknowledge people when they walked in the room. And when that happened, we knew that we had to keep going with this therapy. The problem is that when at that time the Ontario government would cut off services at the age of 6, and so literally on his 6th birthday his worker stopped coming, and it was probably the most, next to losing a child, that was the worst thing that had ever happened to us. So we decided that we would just find a private therapist. But it's funny because I thought of that. I thought, okay, this is what we're going to do. And my husband, I know in his mind, he was thinking, well, A, how are we going to afford that? B, where are we going to find somebody? We were living in a really small little town. So we began about a year's process of trying to hunt down somebody, and we ended up, after the year was over, we found Dr. Joel Hundert at the Behavior Institute, and we found a worker that was willing to work with us. And so we had her trained privately with him, and then we just did video tapes once a week from between Hamilton actually and Iroquois Falls, Ontario. And so we kept going with that process for a whole year, and so that by the time he was in kindergarten, in grade 1-ish, he was starting to, at the beginning of grade 1, it was like he now could talk, he would play and interact and be able to do the give and take that other little kids do. And we were really excited because for once we met, it's like meeting your own child for the first time. We had a typical little boy for the most part. What ended up happening though was that by the time he was in grade 1, he had awesome teachers. He was in my school. He had the best care. People loved him, and he was a good little boy because it had been kind of trained into him to be ready to learn and excited to learn. The problem is that he wasn't learning, and he was in the room, in the classrooms, and he was good, but he wasn't taking anything in. And it was his teacher, and I'll always be grateful for her, because she said to me, I'm not reaching him. I know it. I know he's in a little world somewhere, and I don't know how to get to him. And that was what kind of started my whole sense of how do we move him forward, and what is it that makes a child learn. And so that began my research into applied behavioral analysis.